In this video, I'm going to show you 7 ways to make your drops hit even harder. Number 1 is to make your build-up and pre-drop quieter than the drop. Now I've got a few examples here on the screen to show you, and there's many ways of doing this. Unfortunately, I can't play them because of copyright. You can just see from the wavetable here that it's loud here, and then it gets quieter and quieter and quieter, and then the drop hits. And there's other ways to do this, such as this example here, and then there's other ways to do it with drums still involved. So you could just either EQ the drums to make them quieter, use less drums than in the drop, and then this one here uses quite a lot of drums, but they still keep quieter than the main drop. So another way to do it would be to lower the levels of the drums and maybe some of the instruments. But if there's vocals, always keep the vocals the same level throughout the track, just for consistency's sake. Or what you could do potentially is boost like a sausage fatten or something on the drop only and get it to hit even heavier. You just got to play around with ideas. So this one here has no drums in it, but then this last one has more drums in it. So the more drums you have in the build-up and the pre-drop, the bigger the wavetable is going to be, essentially. And these wavetable examples here lead us nicely on to number 2, and that is if you want your drop to hit really, really hard, then you remove drums from the build-up and the pre-drop. So what this means essentially is you could have your drums in the intro and then they could cut out in the breakdown, and you could just fill it up with Atmos and maybe a vocal if you've got a vocal, or just eerie effects, things like that, and then it just smashes you in the face with a drop. The third way to make your drops hit harder is to remove any low end from the build-up. And you can either just EQ them straight out if the instrument still sounds good when it's EQ'd out, or what you can do is you can gradually filter it out like I've done here. So I've got this like respace that I've turned into like a stab that sounds like this. And then with the automation, it's slowly being EQ'd here. So this is moving, filtering out the low end. And then we've also got a filter this way going the other way. And this just filters out any bass, so when the bass comes back in on the drop, it sounds even heavier. And make sure you do this with all your elements. So if you've got effects that have got low end on them, definitely EQ that out. Now the fourth way to make your drops hit harder is to really, really focus on your low end, and in particular your sub bass. If you can get your sub bass to hit really hard, then your track is just going to instantly sound way better. Listen to this sub bass here. You just know that when that sub bass is going to be underneath any drums or any bass, it's going to sound crazy. Now if you want to copy this sub bass, feel free. It's part of my Chaos collection, which is available on my website. Now the fifth way to make your drops hit hard is to, once you've got your sub bass ready and then you add some basses, it's to really focus on how they sound with your kick drum. So let's listen here. You hear how that kick drum is really cutting through the mix. The sidechain from the bass to the kicks is like on point, and everything is like nicely flowing. That's what you want to get yours to sound like. If you can get your kick and your basses to sound great together, then the rest of the drums and the rest of the elements should come nicely together. And then once you do that, you can then add your clap or your snare, and then your hi-hats, and then your percussion, etc. And then any effects. Now the sixth method to make sure your drop hits really hard is to make sure that all your drums go to a drum bus and all your bass goes to a bass bus. And then what you can do, as you can see here, my drum bus, my bass bus, is you can sort of adjust the volumes, add some saturation and add some limiters, and then you can basically do a little battle between the drums and the bass to get them to complement each other. So as you can see here,
drum and bass is massive.
I always make my drums hit a little bit louder than the basses overall, and this would ensure that your drums can be clearly heard on any rig, on any speaker, whilst also making sure that your bass is impactful enough, especially the sub bass as well on big speakers and things like that. So try and aim for something similar to this. Now the seventh way to make your drops hit harder is to just use a lot of effects at a really quiet volume. So you'll see down here I've got 1, 2, 3 risers here, and this is just with this track. Normally there'd be more, and they're all super quiet on the mix down. So you'll see here, look how quiet they all are along here. And then I also fill in with loads of one-shot samples. So there's one here where there's a little gap where there's no bass playing, and then there's some like layered over the basses or layered over certain drum elements, maybe like a snare or maybe like a percussion, just to give it more groove. So you want your effects to create tension and then to create groove in the drop as well. And then what you can do is add sweeps, and you can also add like white noises along the bottom if you need to fill up the drop even more. And then overall, this will give the track more oomph in the drop and more movement as the drop progresses. I hope these tips were helpful. I use them all the time whenever you're making new music. And I've got a free music production workshop you can sign up to just below if you want to do that completely free. Or you can check out my sample packs, they're also down below as well. Let me know in the comments what you thought. And if you've not smashed the like button yet, please do. I'll see you all in the next one.